Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Mind Your Business and Legacy. My name is Andrew Corrado, and I'm the president of Peapack Private here in New York. I'm delighted to welcome you to our wealth management breakfast today. There will no doubt be a great deal of information shared with you today about our experience, about our breadth and depth of services we provide. I do hope this sparks some conversation between you and your banker and how we can assist you and your business on your journey. So today is all about clarity. Clarity around your business value, your personal goals, and the legacy you want to leave behind. We can't promise to eliminate every curveball, but we can promise to give you practical steps to strengthen what you've built and sharpen where you are headed. Before we get started with our panel discussion and presentation, I would like to introduce you to John Babcock, President of our Wealth Management Division here at Peapack Private. John?
Andrew, since I don't have any notes, can I use yours? Thank you all very much for coming out this morning. I worked in New York for a long, long time. Not everybody that works in New York is an early person, so thank you for coming. And I want to thank Mutual of America for giving us this great space to have this today. Schneps Media, who has been a partner with us, kind of pulling this together, marketing, advertising, and getting the word out. So I joined Peapack 14 years ago, and we're a full-service wealth management group, and we provide trust and fiduciary financial planning, tax advisory, investment management to clients. We're actually the largest New Jersey headquartered bank-owned trust company in the state. We always had clients here in New York, but we never had a physical presence here in New York. So as Andrew and his team and some others from First Republic and other places joined, we now have over 120 people here in New York and Long Island. And so we're trying to build our wealth management business as a complement to what those bankers and what those people do for you. I think you'll find in today's discussion will be interesting. Matt Lujek, who's on the far your left, my right, runs our corporate advisory investment banking group. He works with largely middle market companies that are thinking about selling their business, merging, raising capital, and so we work hand in glove with Matt and his team. I have Rob Melle, Becky West Craven, and Ray Radigan, who are all advisors on my team here in New York and Long Island. And I think Andrew is going to be the MC, kind of run this kind of like it's not a fireside chat, it's a little too big for that, but kind of posing questions and issues and topics that I think will kind of reveal kind of what we do and how we do it and how we provide value to our clients. So with that, I'm just going to hand it back to Andrew.
Well, thank you, John. So why don't we get started here today? And I think, as we said, there's going to be a lot of information here that we're going to provide. And hopefully it'll be thought-provoking for you and provide you with a lot of opportunity to think through your journey. So some of the questions that we cultivated originate from our clients, actually. And so the first one I'm going to pose here is, why is it so important for business owners to think ahead, not just about their business, but about their legacy? Rob, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So like Andrew was saying, when we were coming up with the different slides that we wanted to use for today's presentation, we wanted to start with some very jarring statistics. 50% of businesses in the US are sold involuntarily. There's 5 Ds, if you were, that really come into play here. Death, an unexpected death. There's no one legally able to run your business and make decisions on the business if you're gone. Disability, unfortunate turn of events in your health. There's no one there to help with decisions. You can't go to work, you can't make money. disagreements. It could be with key shareholders. It could be with family members if they're partners. That could really hurt the business. And then there's distress. Maybe you business owners in the room that had to work through COVID and the market downturn and not being able to really work your business full throttle.
Those uncontrollables.
Uncontrollable,
Yeah.
and no fault of yours. So, and then there's divorce. If your business partner is your spouse, that could pose a problem without succession planning. And a quick story, years ago, I worked with a couple that owned a spice packaging company out of New Jersey. They started the business after they got married. She went to culinary school and he had experience in packaging, and they had a very successful business selling spices locally, and then they had a contract with Walmart's on the East Coast. So they were doing really well. I met with them throughout the years individually, because if one was meeting with me, the other one was running the business. If he came in and we talked about the markets, we talked about his individual 401k that he had set up with me, we always talked about business succession planning as well. And he really took the steps, he and her separately, of what that means to them and what their goals are. But so like I said, if he wasn't with me, he was at the factory, and I met with them separately. One day, they both walked into my office together, and I was like, uh-oh, something's up. And then they told me they were getting a divorce. So because of the planning they took and the steps they took, that's the only thing that wasn't dragged into court, was the business.
So exactly what did you do for them that helped them during that difficult time?
Yeah. So what they set up was a buy-sell agreement, and they did a post-nuptial agreement for the business. Something that's really uncommon, but they really took the steps, and our team at the time really helped them with this whole process.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. And so you helped facilitate that process for them?
We absolutely did, and the buy-sell agreement is something Matt will talk about when he speaks, and how that works and how that can really help you and protect you, and it's really a discussion at first to see what your goals are, and you know, if you have a partner that would be interested in buying you out, if that is something that needs to be done, like a divorce.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's great to know.
Yeah.
It's great to know. Things you sometimes don't think about.
Exactly.
Okay. So moving on, many owners regret selling their business within a year. What drives this regret, and how can owners better prepare emotionally for this transition? Becky, your thoughts?
Yeah, if we can advance to slide 9 on there. It's kind of crazy. 75% of all business owners regret selling a year after they sell. Why is that? Well, I'm very fond of saying a personal plan is as important as a business plan, and so few people have it. And what happens is it causes a lot of regret afterwards. So I want to tell you a little story about 2 clients that I have, and we're going to change the names to protect the innocent. We're going to call them Tom and Jerry. And Tom was the chairman of a well-known institution, and his identity was totally wrapped up in that. He loved it that people came to him and said, could we honor you? Can you help my son get a job? And he loved all of that. And when he retired, he missed all that. But he took steps to really do a lot of planning. He set up trusts for his family. He changed his residence to Florida. He did everything that you should do from a tax perspective. One day I'm having lunch with him and he says, you know, I am so jealous of Jerry. Now Jerry, he knew, was a friend. Jerry was a serial entrepreneur that was buying and selling businesses into his 80s. So I say, why are you jealous of Jerry? And he says, Jerry's got his fingers in all these things. He's so busy. He's got a lot of stuff going on. So I say to him, well, you know, maybe you want to think about mentoring or getting on a board for a charity, because they don't listen to you. So, okay. So I'm having lunch with Jerry one day, and Jerry's complaining about the cold. I think we can all agree on that. He has a place down in Florida, and I said, Jerry, have you ever thought about changing your residence down to Florida? He goes, are you kidding? At breakfast, they're talking about what doctors they're going to go see. At lunch, they're talking about what they're going to have for dinner, and at dinner, they're talking about their golf game. It's the same thing every day. I would kill myself. So the point being is that you really have to have some idea about what you want to do. And if you turn to the next slide, slide 10, that to avoid regret, you need to really take an inventory of yourself, of what are your passions, what motivates you, what do you want to do when you're done with your business? Maybe it's start another one, maybe it's lifestyle, maybe it's family, but the important thing is you got to figure that out, and you have to figure out how much all of those things are going to cost you.
That's going to be key.
That's
Everybody's
really
journey is
key.
different.
Everybody's journey is different. Everybody's journey is going to cost something else. And why is that key? That if we turn to the next slide, that there are a lot of things that you may want to do from a practical perspective, but don't forget, in addition to all of these things, that things that fill your soul. And one more slide. So knowing what your goals and objectives cost you is so important, because you can take a look at what you have in your cash and your stocks and bonds today, but that helps you figure out what is the gap that you're looking to your business to fill. So it's really important to have a full understanding of what you want to accomplish and how much that's going to cost.
So, if I hear you correctly, I mean, many business owners rate family and charity as high priorities, especially during their journey, right?
Yep.
So how can gifting to family or charities be structured to maximize benefits and minimize risks? Ray, your thoughts on that?
Sure. Next slide. Once you have a business, I think number one, you focus on the business plan itself. You focus on maximizing returns, all that sort of things. And as your business starts to get successful, you start thinking about your estate planning goals. And a lot of your estate planning goals as a business owner would be basically to benefit your family. And if you're charitably inclined, it would be to benefit charities as well. And so I think once you get past the business stage, you get to the estate planning stage. And with the estate planning stage, what I'll do is talk about there's various types of trusts out there that can help you in your estate plan. And the beauty about trusts is that when you make a gift, the subsequent appreciation is kept out of your estate. That's number one. So you can minimize future estate taxes. Number two, and we'll talk more about this in just a second, but by making gifts in trust versus outright, you're now maximizing asset protection for the recipient. So if you make an outright gift to a child, all right, and that child has a subsequent divorce or creditor problems, that could be an issue. Whereas with a trust, I'll talk more about this in a second, it can be drafted in such a way where it's beyond the reach of the beneficiary's creditors, all right?
Meaning they can't be taken.
Meaning they can't be taken. So if they go through a divorce, if they go through creditor problems, whatever the case might be, if the trust is properly structured, it can be beyond the reach of those beneficiaries' creditors.
Okay.
There's ways of making gifts where you can retain annuities and then gift property in the future. I'll talk about that in a second. And there's tax benefits, clearly, by creating trust.
So what's the old adage? It's not how much you make, it's how much you keep.
It's how much you keep, and how not only yourself,
Yeah,
but within the
absolutely.
family.
Sure.
And that's huge. And the next slide goes through various estate planning strategies. All right, and the first one is lifetime gifts. Again, I think it's preferable with my clients. I've seen it all the time that you can draft a trust in such a way where distributions can go out to these beneficiaries when it's appropriate. But as long as it's drafted correctly, that accumulated income, that accumulated assets in the trust are beyond their creditors.
Okay.
So I would think most people that I work with prefer to set up trusts as gifts versus outright gifts for that main reason. Other things that we see family business owners create is the family limited partnership. What you can do is transfer assets or the business into a family limited partnership. You have general partners who run the business. They have managerial responsibilities, and you have limited partners who own the business but don't have any managerial responsibility. And the beauty about that is when you make a gift of a limited partner interest to your children, it's going to be discounted for gift tax purposes because they don't have any managerial responsibility. Then there's other, in the estate planning world, we're big on acronyms. The next acronym would be GRATS. And with the GRAT, that is short for Grantor Retained Annuity Trust. I can set up a trust, retain an annuity for a period of time, a period of years, and after that period expires, it can go to remainderment. It can go to in trust for the benefit of children, whatever the case might be. What that does, it allows me to retain an annuity for a period of time, and that's going to discount the gift for gift tax purposes because I still have an interest in it until that period expires. The next acronym we'll talk about is the Intentional Defective Grantor Trust, and all that is I can set up a trust where it is a completed gift for gift tax purposes. It's out of my estate. And believe it or not, it can structure the trust in such a way where I can pay, the grantor, pays the income tax on the accumulated income of the trust. So think about it. Those trust assets, in essence, grow tax-free because the grantor is paying the income tax on that. And by the way, the trust can be structured in such a way where you can turn off that switch. If the grantor is saying, hey, I've been paying this for 9, 10 years, enough is enough, you can structure it so going forward, the trust pays that accumulated income, not the grantor, all right? Also, irrevocable life insurance trust, huge planning component for closely held business owners. And what it does, it's drafted in such a way where the insurance proceeds are kept out of the business owner's estate for estate tax purposes. And what happens is when the business owner dies, and that policy comes into fruition, it might go to the kids. And the kids might use those policy proceeds to pay off the resulting estate tax. The problem with closely held business owners is a lot of times there's not enough liquidity within the estate to pay the resulting estate tax. Right. This is a very efficient way to basically pass on liquidity to the children to help them basically pay off the estate tax. There's also charitable lead and remainder trusts. Charitable lead trust is the lead interest goes to charity, the remainder goes to non-charitable beneficiaries, or just the opposite. You have charitable remainder trusts where the lead interest might be retained by the grantor, and when they die or a period of term, money goes to charity. All right, and there's all sorts of charitable trusts that can be created to help with your charitable intent.
So Ray, I think it's safe to say there's no one solution that's right for everyone. How do I know what's right for me?
Well, every situation is different, and it depends on your needs and your wants and your wishes. And again, a couple of these strategies might work. One might work more so than the other. It depends on, again, what the ultimate goal might be. But there's options. That's the point.
Right.
There's more than one choice when you talk about estate planning strategies. And the last thing I'll say, well, I'll jump to the other side in just a second. But basically, you can also structure the estate in such a way where if the closely held business is a large portion of the estate, then the estate tax is attributed to that closely held business do not have to be paid within 9 months of date of death. They can actually be paid over a 15-year period.
Okay,
right?
So spreading it out,
yeah,
if you would.
Right. So, and the bottom line is, getting back to your point, once you have these goals in mind, then you have to figure out how to fund it. Whether it's your portfolio, whether it's your income stream, whether it's your after-tax stream from your business, those are sources of revenue and whatever, capital that you can use to fund these strategies.
So a lot to think about here.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Not simple by any means. All right. Well, it definitely thought-provoking.
Yes.
And again, no one solution fits all, right?
Correct.
What works for you may not work for the other business owner.
Yep.
Okay. That's good to know. Now that we know what post-transition life will cost us, let's talk about the ways that a business can help meet those expenses. What are the various ways for a business owner to transition their business? Matt, your thoughts?
Great question, Andrew. Can you jump 2 slides
I can.
or 3 slides? There we go.
There we go.
All right. So let's set the stage here. So if you look at this chart here, this looks at the demographic of privately held business owners. The thing that you want to take away here is 80% of the folks are over 45 years old, and then you have 30% that are over 60. So what I could tell you is those over 60, and it's a aging population.
Hello.
They're not. They are not thinking about their succession planning. They're not thinking about how to plan for that next generation. And whether they like it or not, it's something that you have to think about. So and all of that takes time. That's the other key thing about this is you can't just wake up one day and say, okay, now it's time to do something, because you're going to miss out on some tax savings. You're going to miss out on properly maximizing the value of your business. So it's important to have a plan, and all of that takes time. So when we go to the next slide.
So planning early is key, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. Whether we like it or not, people like to put things off, and we'll get into why. It's like, even thinking about, your will or estate. It's like no one wants to think about their own demise, but unfortunately, it's a part of life. And the more you prepare for it, the better your family and legacy will be taken care of. So things that are on business owners' minds. So from doing this, this constantly changes. It's we don't have enough employees, it's interest rates, we went through COVID, now we're dealing with a bunch of tariffs, one day on, next day off. It's hard for business owners to plan. But if you set up all your other planning in place, if that day ever comes where you want to transact or do something, you're going to be ready for it. So that's the key thing. If you look at this, the one thing that's on there is the succession planning. Like I said on the prior slide, that usually falls all the way to the bottom of what a business owner is thinking about.
They're so busy running their business day to
Yes,
day.
yes.
Who's thinking about what's going to happen in
Yep.
3 years, 5 years from now?
Exactly, but you need to. And I'll share a story in a couple of slides of what happens when you don't think about it.
Right.
So then if we go to the next slide, we think about how do you transact and what are the options, right? And lots of times business owners just think, oh, I just need to sell the business. Well, you could sell a minority piece of the business. You could sell a majority piece of the business. You could sell it to private equity. Private equity gets, a bad reputation, but there's all different flavors of private equity. Some more active, some more passive, all different types of levels of investment. So there's a lot to think about. You could sell to a strategic. You could transition to other business partners. So there's a lot of options, and business owners really should take the steps of looking at their business, thinking about the value, and then thinking about, okay, what are my options to transact this business and take some of this value back for my family? We go to the next slide. The unfortunate thing is why businesses fail. And there's a number of reasons up here. I could tell you one of the reason I see the most is the lack of delegation and the lack of preparing for that next generation. So I'll tell you a story. I was pulled into a manufacturing business, very successful, nice niche manufacturing business. 2 business owners, late 60s, early 70s. We sit down, they have their grand plans. One wants to retire with his wife, go move to another state, and we're talking about valuation and what they want. And then we start probing a little bit more, and I go, okay, so what's your next level of staff? Oh, we don't really have a lot of good decision makers or managers. Okay, well, how do you train the staff? Where's all the knowledge base? Oh, it's all up here.
Right.
Right.
So then we said to them, listen, we could go out and we could go market this business, but the valuation expectations probably are not going to be met, because whoever is going to look to buy this wants to ensure that the business will be successful. And if everything's tied up with you and in your head and your operations, it's going to be hard for someone to pay you the full value of that business. So the other side of the story is, we talked about financials, and having your financial house in order is really important. And we talked to them, and they said, no, we're good. So we went and did a quality of earnings there, and we determined that the financials were not good. And we had to make some adjustments to that. So then
It's gotta hurt.
Yeah, it did. Went out to market, valuations, we got bids, but came in lower than what they had thought, in line with what we were thinking based on the fact pattern. So the unfortunate situation there is now these business owners had to take a step back. Now they're doing the steps, but now they're another 3 to 5 years out from actually getting to retire and live that life that they want. So it's unfortunate, but you have to have those plans in place and you have to do things early. Otherwise, you'll find yourself in a situation like this.
So I guess it's safe to say, if you are the business, you can't expect it to sell it for the multiples you think you can get.
Yes.
5, 6 times, right?
Yep.
Especially if you are, like I said, the engine.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Next slide. These are just some stats. So, 58% of business owners haven't created a plan. And then when we look at the next slide, why is that? Because they enjoy running the company. And I get it. It takes time out of your day, but it's something that you really need to think about. Now we're going to talk about, some options of how to transact. So one of those options is selling it to a business partner. So, as Rob mentioned earlier, you have buy-sell agreements. You have, but then there's how do you fund it? And lots of times business owners don't think about that. You have the cash flow of the business. You could look at credit solutions to take on debt to fund the transaction. You could pull in another partner for a minority piece to help fund some of that transaction. So there's lots of different options out there if it's something that you want to do. And that's the key message that I'm going to keep saying is there's a lot of options, and you should really think and weigh those options before you go down a path. Another side note here is another situation that I run into with business owners all the time is they say, oh, I have these junior partners here. I know my plan. I'm going to offer partnership to them. They're going to take it, and it's going to work out great. Time and time again, when those conversations happen, all of a sudden those junior partners that they thought would want to buy in, they're like, no, we're good. So it's important to have those conversations early and understand the dynamics that you're part of. Going to the next slide, selling to a third party. So what drives value and what gets a premium value for a business? So I mean the key things that everyone says, size, revenue growth, margins, those all help drive value. But then you have to think about all the other things, and lots of times business owners don't think about, what does my revenue look like? Is it recurring? Do I have my contracts in place? Do I have contracts and non-competes, non-solicits with key employees? There's time and time again, you get down the finish line and key employees aren't locked up or taken care of. And they're really important to the overall value of the business as well.
Sure.
So
those are
it's
the ones you want to keep after the transition.
Yep, exactly. So it's really important to make sure you have all of that in line, and also up there, the financial reporting. Take the time and take the effort of getting your financial house in order, because whether you like it or not, you're either going to pay for it over the life of the business, or you're going to have a big to-do and lump sum right before you want to transact. So it's important to take the steps early.
That's good advice.
So now that we've talked about options and what to think about, now we talk about deal structure, and it ties all together. But there's different deal structures. You have stock sales, you have asset sales, and then you have the tax mitigation strategies of QSBS, ESOPs, and that's the important part of having an advisor and having someone involved is looking at what is the best way. Okay, so now we've got everything taken care of in the business, but now let's think about how do we structure this to ensure, going back to what Andrew said, it's not what you sell it for, it's how much you keep. And having the right tax strategy and the right structure of a transaction is key.
So Matt, you and your team could help advise
Yes.
clients how to do that best and what's
Yes.
best for them.
Exactly. That's what's the beauty of this is, we're able to sit back and we, first of all, figure out what is the business worth. And then we say, we don't just push, there's one option. Let's look at all the options and see what makes the best sense. And then coupling that with our trust, wealth, planning side of the house,
Right.
we figure out what is the most tax efficient strategy for a business owner to pursue. So it's a nice
Full package,
full
full
package.
service.
Yes, exactly.
Good to know. Good to know.
And then the next slide after this one, this is just a giant matrix of options. I'm not going to go through this, but the takeaway, like I just said, is it's good hygiene for every business owner to think about what is the value of my business on an annual basis? Are the things that I'm doing increasing my value? Are they decreasing my value? And what are my options? So if you're not doing that, I think it's really important to do that. It's a healthy thing to do. And it allows you to see, are there holes in my operations? Are there things that I should be doing to help maximize the value of my business?
A lot again.
A lot going on.
Yeah.
And
My God.
transitioning skill set is not an easy thing to achieve, is what you're saying
Yes.
ultimately. All right. So transitioning a business to the next generation creates different challenges. Obviously, you shared that with us. But how can families overcome them? Ray, can you help us with that?
Yeah, it's amazing. Most business owners want to pass their business on to the next generation. 70% of them want to basically pass on their business to the next generation. Unfortunately, statistics don't bear it out. And as you can see, about 30% of these businesses make it through to the second generation, 12% make it to the third generation, and about 3% make it to the fourth generation. So then the question becomes, okay, if the intent is to pass it on to the family and the children and grandchildren, how come it's not working? And if you go to the next slide, a lot of it has to do with just breakdown of communication. It could be in several parts. It could be the business owner is just so focused on running the business that they're not talking or thinking about having a transition.
Right.
Okay, and that's critical. I've been involved in family meetings where they sit down on a periodic basis, at least annually, and they sit down and they talk about transition. And they talk about how long is the senior generation going to run this business, and at what point is the junior generation start to take over, and what are the duties they have to be familiar with to take that over. And in the meeting that I was in, there were 3 children, 2 were going to be in the business, 1 was not. And the question of the person who was not, all right, what benefits do I get? And what say do I have, whether it's dividends, future cash flow, whatever. But the important thing, and this family business is still going because they've had this dialogue. But lack of that dialogue, quite frankly, can kill you. And that's why those statistics are so bad. Also, you can see 25% of the failures are due to unprepared, if you will, inadequately prepared heirs. That could be a couple of reasons. It could be because the senior member is not mentoring the junior member, or it could be the fact, quite frankly, that the junior member does not have an interest in participating in the business. They have their own goals.
We see that quite a bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. And the whole family has to accept that. And if that's the case, then maybe family transition is not the right answer. Maybe it's something else, which I'll get to in a second. Absence of clear vision to align the family members, again, that has to do with communication. And then, unfortunately, 3% of the failures have to do with failure of professional advice, which is a component as well. So what's important, if you go to the next slide, is, again, getting back to succession planning early. And, plan early, not only running the business, but where is the transition going to go 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And there's different options. It might go to the family. It might go to a trusted partner. I've seen a lot of situations where there's 3 partners in a business, and they structure it so that when the first one dies or is disabled or resigns, whatever, the other 2, for example, are successors. All right, but that has to be planned out. Buy-sell agreements are typically what are used to fund those type of agreements. But and also, as you plan this, you have to evaluate your family. Is the family the right succession? And if the heirs are not interested in running the business, then I think these other alternatives make sense. The point is, once you figure out what the succession plan is, either family members or others, then implement it. And if you go to the next slide, again, these are the viable partners, if you will. It could be partners, it could be employees. With ESOPs, you mentioned that before. That's a way to pass on ownership interest to the employees. There might be a strategic third party. I've seen in one case where a family business built up their family business to a certain point, and then it was trouble getting to the next level, and they got private equity involved. Yep. And that's where you come in and help in that regard. So the point is, you want to transition to the family, make sure that's a realistic option. If it's not, these are the other options to consider.
So when you bring in private equity, you may lose some control,
Oh, yeah, no question.
right? So it's
Yes.
no longer family owned.
Right. Oh,
And if
yeah.
that's your plan, you need, again, to plan
To
early
think.
and make
Yep.
sure the next generation is prepared to take on that initiative.
Right, but hopefully the private equity is totally into the entity itself, and they're going to take it to a next level, and this founding partner can still have a role.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, lots of times private equity funds, they obviously, some
Yeah,
are
right.
more active, but some are more passive and say, we don't know your business. We're going to give you the capital, and if you need some back office stuff, we'll do that.
Right.
But we want you to run the business, and a lot of times that's how you unlock that extra level of value, right? Because you get some cash today, you roll that equity, and then they're giving you capital injection to take it to that next level, and then when it eventually sells again, you have more.
Yeah.
You get more value than you would had you just ran it by yourself. So it is a great strategy in certain situations.
So I guess it's important to understand the value. The question I have is, why should business owners have an understanding of the value of their business, even if they're not ready to transition? Becky, what are you thinking about that?
Well, if we can switch to the next slide, there are lots of reasons, and a lot of them have to do with planning. Whether you're going to do a buy-sell, whether you're going to do gifting, there's a lot of reasons why you would need to know the value of your business. But it's also important not to fixate on the value of your business. I'm going to tell you about a podcast that I heard recently that really resonated with me, and I hope it resonates with you too. There was this gentleman named Joe Duran, and he was talking about money being the fuel to get you to your end destination. Now, we talked about what's your end destination, understanding what your journey is going to be and the things that fulfill you and your passions, and knowing what that is. But if we fixate just on the value of our business, it's like saying that our final destination is the gas station, rather than getting to the gas station to get the fuel to get us to the rest of our journey and our destination, which I thought was very good. And we all have businesses, and our businesses are our babies. And our babies are beautiful, and we love our babies and think they should all be the winners of the beauty pageant. The problem is, if you say, oh, well, I know that Ray just sold his business for X, so my business must be worth at least X or X plus, and I'm not going to sell for a penny less, that's you making the sale of your business the gas station, the end destination. Your destination is the gas station there. And there are lots of reasons why that might not work.
I was say, I know you're gonna get into it, Becky, but like, I've had situations like right now, there's a really hot industry, and I just sold a company in that space, and I'm working with another one. And you would think that there could be very similar values, but they're not. And it all has to do with the individual dynamics of the business. The way that one business, their customer retention was different, their contracts were different. So all these things play into the valuation of the business. So it's important, as Becky said, you run into this all the time. Someone's out at their club or whatever, oh, Joe sold his business for 20 times. Okay, well, what was Joe's
Joe.
Yeah, but what was Joe's business? And what were the dynamics of that business? Because then business owners do get like this mindset of like, oh, it needs to be this. Well, let's take the step back and understand the situation, and then we could give you thoughts on what a realistic valuation is.
And didn't you tell me, Matt, that the number one reason why transactions fail is for value expectations? It's inadequate.
It's a huge part of it, and it goes the other way too. I've run into another situation where I was talking to a business owner. He's like, "Oh, I think my business is worth this." I'm like, it's worth a lot more more than that, and here are the reasons why. So there's some nice surprises.
So you don't want to sell yourself short either.
Yeah,
Right,
absolutely.
Right. So if we flip to the next slide, these are some very simple ways to get a general estimate idea of what your business might be worth. But really, on the slide after, is what Matt does and how you really get a truer example of what your business might be worth. The first part is comparing to public companies, and we're not public companies, so it's not a great analysis. The second is comparable M&A transactions, and that goes to the story that Matt was saying. If I know that Ray sold his business for X, well, I don't know why Ray sold his business for X. I don't know what his business had that made it so valuable to some of the purchasers. Maybe my business has it, maybe my business doesn't have it. So you have to be realistic about that, and Matt and his team can walk through that with you and really help you understand that.
So at the end of the day, right, who should be on a business owner's advisory team? And how do these advisors work together to help achieve both personal and business goals? Rob, your thoughts on that?
Sure. So a lot of you in the room today were invited by your banker that you've worked with for years, and I respect that, those long-term relationships. And you trust them. You've maybe even moved from one bank to the other, and now with Peapack Private Bank Trust. So we're happy. But the wealth advisory team feels very strongly that we should be working closely with the banker, as well as your attorney, a tax accountant, and in conjunction coming up with the right plan for you. You've heard a lot of specific information of how businesses can be transitioned, and an exit strategy from Ray and Matt, and the valuations and the importance of it. But when you have an advisory team working together to your benefit, things will move much more smoothly for you, and hopefully the goal is to give you some peace of mind so you can concentrate on your business. Just different examples, like should the business merge with another company when you're ready to exit? It should be like exit, slide 35, 36, 37.
Yep.
Yeah. Family succession, does that make sense? Are there family members that are even interested in what you're doing? Quick story, I wasn't planning on telling this, but it was just real time. Yesterday, after leaving this event, I went over to the branch and I met with a prospect to the wealth advisory side. They were already a long-term client of the bank, and clearly the banker established a great trusting relationship with this client. But they wanted to speak to the wealth advisory side, meaning me, and they wanted to hear what we had to offer. And I think in his mind, it was going to be just a transaction. He's used to transacting with the banker. I need a credit line. I need a mortgage, whatever it might be. And that banker helped them the best they can. They have a great relationship. She put her best foot forward for him and did the right thing. But there was so much more behind him and what's going on in his life. He's buying properties under an LLC. I met a new friend here today who's in the middle of all of that. So he's married. His husband works full time. He is the person who has the steady income and creates also has the medical benefits. So he's able to kind of spread his wings a little bit with this Airbnb space that he's looking to take on. He has a lot of family experience with it. But we started talking about what he's doing to putting monies aside for retirement, what he's doing for succession planning for the LLC, and all of that. So what the conversation led to is the importance of the advisory team. And he says, well, how can you help me with that? I started explaining, similar to what we talked about today, and having a team around him. Did someone reach out to his accountant to make sure that he made a contribution to something tax deferred? He didn't even know, and I look out into one of the bankers that I work very closely with, and how many business owners that we met with, and I asked them what did they put aside tax deferred, and they didn't. No one advised them to. So the idea of working as a team is how we can help and really ensure things collaboratively for your benefit. And you heard a lot of ideas, and you're probably wondering, how am I going to remember this? Once you start going through the process and meeting with everyone, and it could be by Zoom, it could be face-to-face, whatever you're comfortable with, if your accountant is in another state, and we could do a Zoom meeting, but we can talk and really find out what's right for you and kind of come up with the best plan for you, business-wise, personal-wise. That's really strongly what we feel the benefit is.
Again, that's the value add.
For sure.
Absolutely. Okay. So I guess, the last question here is, and I'll open it up to all four of you to answer, but how can a boutique private bank like Peapack Private help owners crystallize their goals and implement effective strategies for both business and legacy planning? And Rob, we'll start with you and we'll go right down the line.
Sure, I'll start real quick. I've had the benefit of working with a very large firm, one of the largest firms in the world. And it became very, very cookie cutter. They wanted us to put clients in a box. They're this, they're that. And it wasn't personalized. So the benefit, and I'm so fortunate to move forward and be with Peapack Private Bank and Trust, and see the personalized relationships that the bankers have. And on the wealth advisory side, we're looking to deepen the relationship. I would say the big difference is the transactions that you're used to. I would think with what we talked about today is more long-term, more long-term planning. And I think when you're with a boutique firm like Peapack Private, the follow-up is there. The relationships are there. We're reaching out to you. We're making sure we're hearing what's going on. We're doing constant reviews. You're not getting that at a big firm. When you're coming over to them as a prospect, they're going to say, this is what we offer, this is what we could deliver. But when you're there, they're worrying about the next customer. They're worried about where the new prospect is. So the relationships we have at a smaller boutique allow us to really get our hands around your whole situation and help you and reach out to people like Matt and Ray when necessary. I think that, to me, is the biggest difference.
Okay. Becky?
If you flip to slide 41, we talked before that understanding what your goals and dreams are and how much that's going to cost you. But how do you know how much that's going to cost you? We have an amazing financial planning team here that can help you figure not only that question out, but so many other questions. And I'm going to give you a quick example of something that we did for a client who gifting to his kids and grandkids was extremely important to him. His goal was to get as much out to them as possible. And he comes along and he says, so can I afford to give another gift? I'm thinking about giving more money, and can I afford it? Because nobody wants to go back to their children at the end of the day and ask them to give money back, right? So we say, okay, let's go ahead and we'll take a look at what your expenses are and how much money you have and what the return on those assets are expected to be, and let's figure that out. By the way, they had an intentionally defective grantor trust that Ray was talking about before. They were already paying the taxes for these trusts that they had set up for their kids. So a huge gift that they were already making every year. And so we went ahead and we did the analysis, and we said, if markets are good, you're probably going to be okay. But if markets aren't so great, it's a good chance you're going to run out of money. He elected not to do the gift, especially since we looked at the trusts, which already had more money than he did, and we did another illustration for how much the distributions were and how much that was expected to grow. Those trusts were going to end up funding for children and grandchildren, great-grandchildren that he had never even met. They had that much money. So that gave him a lot of comfort that he didn't have to really stretch himself and gift more than he was really comfortable doing. And on the next page, quickly, we have some very simple things. These are very common requests that we get for financial planning. But the point is that I think you should all remember is, if you have a question, we can help you answer it so that you have the confidence to make the financial decision that's right for you. So, Ray, next.
Sure, next slide. The first thing I want to say is I've been here for 2.5 years, and as you guys were saying, I worked for many different private banks like John Babcock. Some were very large, cookie cutter type. Some were smaller but didn't have the expertise. This is different. This situation, I've been here 2.5 years. The number one thing I've seen is there are such strong relationships that bankers have with their client base, more so than in any place I've ever seen. That's number one. And because of that relationship, there's a trust. And when the banker says, hey, you know what, we can help you in the planning regard, we can certainly help them. And it's customized, it's personalized. And one of the things we have is a Delaware subsidiary. Delaware has one of the most advanced trust laws in this country, bar none. And through our Delaware subsidiary, we can offer various types of trusts to our client base. And these trusts, for example, I've been involved in many situations where a New York resident sets up a trust. It's a gift, and it's an irrevocable trust where the kids are beneficiaries. And what happens is that the trust is set up in such a way where obviously to the extent the trust has accumulated income, you're paying federal income tax, but you're not paying New York income tax, and you're not paying Delaware income tax, assuming there's, all the beneficiaries are non-residents of Delaware. So there's tax savings, number one. Number two, Delaware is king of what's known as the directed trust, where I can actually bifurcate the duties of a trust, where you have a trustee solely responsible for trust administration. You have investment advisor. Many times it's the family business that's being used to fund the trust. They want to continue to run and manage. You can bifurcate that, where the trustee is not responsible for investment decisions and vice versa. So Delaware is very, very big on directed trusts. They have the silent trust. That's a situation where the beneficiary doesn't even know they're a beneficiary. And the reason why parents might want to set this up is if they knew they were a beneficiary, it might impede their fruition to
Become productive members of society.
Yeah, to career development, whatever the case might be. Dynasty trust. In Delaware, you can have trust that can last forever. In New York, you cannot. New York, basically, a trust has to basically end no later than 2 lives in being plus 25 years. Your average trust can last in New York about a little over 100 years. In Delaware, if you have, and I've seen it, wealthy entrepreneurs who want to basically take care of generations, a family endowment, if you will, you can create that in Delaware. The point is, there's all sorts of trust that you can create in Delaware that you cannot necessarily create in the tri-state area.
Who would have thought that? You sit in the financial capital of the world and have to go to Delaware.
And just as an aside, New York also has very antiquated trust laws. And you would think, you look around,
right,
in the financial capital that we're living in. But Delaware is smart enough to realize what the clients want from an estate planning standpoint and then structure their laws so that these trusts can be created.
So what you're saying, Ray, is Peapack can help you facilitate that process.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes, through our Delaware subsidiary.
Good.
Yep.
All right. So next slide. So on the investment banking side, really we focus on family founder-owned businesses, like I said before, and we take that approach of blank slate, let's figure out what the business value is, then let's figure out your options, and we help business owners from the valuation to how do I sell my business, what happens if I want to grow, what happens if I want to acquire someone, how do I go about that, because we run into that. What happens if I need growth capital, how do I go out to the markets and obtain capital? So we help a business owner through all of that. And then when we're sitting in a bank like Peapack, where we have the trust, estate, and wealth planning, and then we also have the balance sheet of a commercial bank where, hey, maybe one of those options is use the balance sheet and we do a levered recap. We are able to provide to our middle market clients services that you would get at a larger institution. So when you think about Peapack, over 100-year-old institution where we're providing to the middle market, the services that you'd get at some of the larger institutions. And as everyone said, I've been here for a while now, nothing's transaction based. It really is creating that legacy for families and being there the whole length of whatever that endeavor is. Even though my business a lot of times is selling a company or helping someone acquire, like I'm long-term, friends and clients of the people that I help, and a lot of times they're clients now of our wealth group.
Yeah.
So we want to have that long-term relationship, and that's what makes us different in the market.
That's great to hear. Well, thank you all. I appreciate your wisdom, your intelligence in sharing that with us today. I want to thank all of you for listening. And at this time, we will be happy to take some questions from the audience. Okay, we have somebody coming around with microphones so we can hear you. I think this gentleman right here, Sean. Right here.
Hey, how are you? Tim Piamonti with Tribeca Softtech. So, great presentation, by the way. Thank you. How do you help answer the questions that I don't know the answers to? So when I retire, I don't know if I want to live in Fiji or the Swiss Alps. Can you help me model out different scenarios, like 3, 4, 5, 6 different scenarios based upon my timeline? What I want to do with the money that I have to. I don't know. You know what I mean? So
I'll take that one,
Okay.
Andrew. So what I'm hearing from you is maybe you're interested in a financial plan and kind of like these what-if scenarios. What if I want to buy something here or live something there longer? So the process, and Becky had talked about it, touched on it a few minutes ago, the financial planning process. Strong financial planning team here at Peapack Private. You'll work specifically with someone who will ask you the questions. It's generally kind of generic questions, but once the conversation starts, that's when all of that will come up. So all the inputs are put in. You're obviously providing your assets. Not saying you have to move them or anything. You're telling us what you have and telling us what your expenses are. And we factor in a rate of return, we factor in inflation, and it's a software that we use. And in the end, we look to do what's called a Monte Carlo. So we're taking your situation and running it through 1,000 market cycles, ups, downs, ins, outs, everything sideways, 1,000 market cycles. And we want to see you successful 750 times in 1,000 market cycles. And we're comfortable telling you at that point, you can have a good retirement. And it will show you a spreadsheet of what you will have legacy in the end. But to answer your question specifically, how could we help with that? That's when we could put in how could we help with you decide living in wherever you mentioned, Fiji. Yeah, Fiji.
And why not both?
Yeah, exactly. and have a little room for me.
And me.
But but those are those what-if scenarios. So we'll get the nuts and the bolts in of your financial plan. If you trust us enough to allow us to help you, we'll get that all that information in. But then we could put in these what-if scenarios. What if I move here? What if I buy that? What if I retire earlier? And that's how it works. And it's a moving target.
So if I hear you correctly, you're going to pose questions for you thought-provoking questions to really help think.
100%.
Again, no one's journey is the same and no one's plan. And what happens if I want to make a change later on down the road?
100%. Just like Andrew said, and we'll be asking questions, and it's an ongoing relationship. You may have a windfall, you may have a downfall, and we have to change the plan. God forbid you have a downfall, but we may have to change the plan, or you may come up with something else that you're interested in, and we'll factor it into the plan. We'll see what it looks like. Does it make sense? So we're helping you, along with the rest of your advisory team, to make the right decisions for you. And I think what we're offering you, hopefully, is peace of mind.
Great question.
Of course.
Other questions? In the back? Sean?
Thank you. Ditto, this was a great presentation. So this is a question that might be more of an offline question, but it's a succession planning question.
Yep.
In a closely held business where the two principals are related, they have no operating agreement, but they are horrendous at communication. So if somebody's coming into the business, a family member, how does that family member, and maybe you've seen this in the past, get them to communicate when I would say they are probably the worst communicators I've ever seen? How do you accomplish that?
Well, I've been involved in that type of situation where they asked me to come in and facilitate the conversation. If they're not natural communicators to begin with, then you have to figure out a forum where all these ideas have to flow. And if you have to structure the meeting itself to have that information flow, so in other words, you might, and this third party might be us, it might be the attorney, it might be the accountant, but in the fact pattern that you're describing, I think a third party should be there to facilitate that conversation.
Absolutely.
Side note, we have no licensed therapists.
You sure about that?
I think that's what we do every day.
So just as one addition to the fact pattern,
Sure.
what if they are reluctant communicators who would likely potentially not entertain a meeting? How do you? And we're not talking. It's
common.
It's a good sized company.
It's
Okay.
common, and I've dealt with that. And a lot of times you have to start with meeting them separately, understanding a little bit more, and then slowly getting them together. But it takes time. And what you're describing, we see all the time.
Yeah.
The good question for them is, what do they want their legacy to be? How do they want to
Right,
transition
exactly.
that knowledge, and what are their hopes for their family? Right? Other questions? Yes, right here.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, good morning.
I have never felt so loved and so cared for, and I wish I had found you guys sooner.
We didn't pay you, by the way, but thank you.
No. I want to tell you a few things. One is that at 85, my plan to retire is when I'm dead. And I found that I had a problem. I had saved up for my business $4 million, and I wasn't spending anything. I was afraid to spend it because maybe I won't have any money eventually. And then I read this incredible book, said, spend your damn retirement money, which was amazing. So I went to my fiduciary and I said, I want to buy my daughter a $1 million apartment. And he said, don't do it because the markets could change, etc. And I went ahead and did it. And the joy that she is experiencing and that I am too, I just want to say so many people, I know I have a ghostwriting business, so many of the billionaires, multimillionaires, business owners that I work with are reluctant to spend their money. And so I want to know, maybe you need a licensed therapist. If somebody came to you like me and wanted to do something like that, would you encourage it?
I would say it depends. Right? It depends on your personal situation. It depends on what gives you joy. We talked about like finding the meaning for you. And you know, a lot of times you hear people say, I don't want to wait for my kids to have money till I'm dead. I want them to enjoy it while I can appreciate that they're enjoying it. Other people don't feel that way. So again, you don't want to bankrupt yourself, and doing some of this financial planning illustrations can help you see that, yeah, I'm going to be okay if I buy my daughter an apartment. So you know, it's really up to you. Like, what's your sleep at night number, right? We all have one where if I have less than this, I'm going to be worried about money every day. If you want to give your daughter an apartment and everything else, if you sleep at night, that works for you.
Thank you.
It gets back to the customized solutions, really.
Yeah.
It really
And
does.
I would also say that one of the first things we would do is make sure you have enough money retained to comfortably support yourself. And usually the answer to that is yes.
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, then we start talking about these gifting opportunities.
Right.
And that is only determined after a financial plan. And
Right.
what you just said could be factored into the plan. What if I spend $1 million? Because that's important to you. And if you're asking me what I suggest, when we run the plan, we'll talk about the results of the plan, And if you're comfortable with the results of the plan, we're going to move forward. And I'm surprised, if you had a fiduciary, I would think he suggested a financial plan.
Excuse me, sorry.
When you said you had a fiduciary,
I do have a fiduciary, but I was surprised that he thought I shouldn't
Yeah.
spend the $1 million, even though I'd still have $3 million left.
Right.
Well, you know,
And I don't even live that high on the hog.
Rob talked before about wanting to make sure that your plan was successful, and like most financial advisors consider that to be like 75% or above, that you have a good probability. But some clients, the level of success is much lower. Like if you are good 50% of the time, that works for you. But you know, most times advisors don't want to say, oh, 50-50, you know, do it. So that's why he probably gave you that advice. But you know, it's really, as Andrew said, a customized solution. We go through the numbers, we run the illustrations with you, and then if it works for you, you do it. If it doesn't work for you, you don't.
And everybody's journey is going to be different at
sure.
the end of the day. Everybody's situation is different, and that's where having that partnership and that trust comes into play. So you can run those scenarios and have a very thought-provoking, decision-based, you know, decision to make at that point.
I still feel that Peapack is the best kept secret in the world.
Again, I didn't pay you.
Time to spread it.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes.
So we're talking about the importance of planning. And sometimes we know, despite our best intentions, we fail to plan. And I think, Becky, you're dealing with the real life situation now where you're talking to business owners where the matriarch of the business got sick, and now the family is left in a lurch of trying to figure out not only how do they take care of mom, but how do they run the business. And it's a good motivational tale in terms of why people need to do this.
So a banker here included me in a situation with a client, and the client came in expecting to talk about investments. And before we even got to the investments and what solutions we can offer, we were like, okay, let's take a step back, tell us about your life, what's going on. Because frankly, I mean, we get paid to do investments, but it's the last thing on the list. But we have to really understand everything else that's going on with you and your life before we can suggest an investment plan for you. And so we started talking, and they're very heavy real estate. Very heavy real estate. Didn't buy life insurance, now matriarch is sick. They had used their lifetime gift exemptions, and so didn't really have an opportunity to make any gifts or minority gifts like Ray was talking about. And so we got to the conversation, we said, you know, my gosh, you're gonna have a big problem if matriarch dies. How are you gonna pay for this estate tax? And the person said, it keeps me up every night. And so this is a situation where, yeah, everybody wishes that we would have planned earlier, but we can't just throw our hands up and say, well, that's, you know, too bad, so sad. And so we've really started digging into a lot of esoteric potential solutions for them, the things that they might be able to do. Some things that we don't even do here, but that we have partners outside that could help do it, whether it's generational split dollar situations, whether it's creating trusts, seeding them with some money and making minority discounts, or selling pieces of the real estate into that to try to get this illiquidity out of her estate. So, you know, there's a lot of things that we can do, and we put our heads together, and everybody comes up with 4 or 5 ideas on what we can suggest to this client so that they're not faced with an unbelievable estate tax. God forbid something should happen to the matriarch.
Great point. Great point. I think we have time for one more question. Or maybe 2.
Hello, everyone. So my question is, what is the success story that you guys are proud of that keeps you guys on the radar and the trust strong?
That's a good question.
It's a good question.
Well, I've been involved in a situation, sort of what you were saying, where there were 2 partners, they did not communicate with each other. I was able to step in and basically formulate the meeting, encourage them to talk to one another. I met with them individually first. And P.S., one of them passed away, but the succession plan actually was implemented and it works. So when this actually works, we talk about this all the time, but when it actually comes to fruition and it either goes to the next generation or the surviving partner or whatever, to me, that's the most satisfying thing. Not only to implement the plan, but watch it work in the process.
And I'd add that even though John said we're not licensed therapists, when clients treat you like you're their therapist, I feel like that's really a mark of success. And I have, I'll never forget this. I was pretty early in my career, and I was with a gentleman, God rest him, he's not with us anymore, and he had a real estate business, and he started talking about his children. My son, he never gets in until 10 o'clock, and he leaves at 3, and I don't know what to do about him. And my daughter, all she wants is my money. She's asking me all the time for the money. And so when you get to that point, some of that has nothing to do with what we do, but it's important to the clients. They trust you enough to share some of this stuff, to hear your insights, to have you as a sounding board. And to me, that's a home run. If you've gotten there with your clients, that's a home run.
That's the basis of success, being a trusted advocate.
Yeah.
Very true, very true.
To add to that, yeah, one of mine was a couple of years ago, sold a business owned by someone that was close to 85 years old, had gone through multiple failed sale processes because he didn't have the trust, and he couldn't let go of the baby, and he also, for him, it was the whole mental aspect. So again, going back to the whole therapist thing, building that relationship, building that trust, talking to him and making him understand that, listen, if you don't do something here, I get you built this thing, but if you go and this doesn't happen, all your employees, all the people you care about, it's all going to be sold for pennies on the dollar because it's going to be, just like almost a fire sale. And going through that situation with him and ultimately selling that business, and he is now the happiest person out there that he finally let go because he had all that stress, and he was driving 2 hours to work every day, and he loved it. It was his identity. But once he finally let go, it was all worth it.
All right. One last question here before we have to
Yeah,
wrap up.
just had a general question in terms of like Peapack Private. There's two questions here. One is, what is the typical kind of, asset side that you see with family businesses, the typical dollar size? Is it a million? Is it 100 million? That's the first question. And second, in terms of the Peapack Private, we would know which of the services are handled in-house. For example, estate consultation, insurance consultation, because for us, we're kind of like the traditional, I'm second generation, but we're handling this issue very, very early in terms of succession, because a lot of challenges that we face is liquidity. There's so much equity in this business, but as second generation, the one thing, especially going through the last 3 or 4 years, I don't want to encounter is have this huge fluctuation with interest rates. Right. Yep. Everyone was was drinking the Kool-Aid when interest rates were 3 or 4%, right? Yeah. Now you see it go up to 7, 8%, and fortunately for me, in our generation, my generation, it's fine, right? But I don't want to have so we're deleveraging. A lot of us are deleveraging, but the challenge is I deleverage, a lot of the liquidity is still stuck in the business. Right. So our question to Peapack is, do you provide some structured finance solutions just to access some of this credit? Or would it be through third-party advisory for us to access this credit?
Yeah, so part of my team, we do have a structured finance side of the house, so that's something we would look at. And then the nice thing is if it's not our balance sheet, then my team is able to go access outside third-party credit solutions to help access the liquidity. And then size of business, I generally say $20 to $200 million, but I've worked with companies much larger, and I've worked with companies that are $5 or $6 million. But that's the general gist.
Okay. Well, I think we have provided a great deal of information about the products and services and the depth and breadth of expertise that we can provide. I want to thank all of you for coming today. Please reach out to a Peapack Private Banker and to help you during your journey. There is no one easy off-the-shelf solution here, as you can see. Everything we do is customized to you, your business, delivering delivered by a banking team that you can count on and trust. That defines who we are as a boutique private bank delivering bespoke white glove service here in New York. I want to thank you all again for coming. Please be safe this weekend with the winter storm coming.
Yeah.
And hopefully if you are snowed in, we have given you a lot to think about during your downtime. Enjoy, be safe.